Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win, or you find a way to lose. And I'll tell you this, right? Since doing this channel, I've come across a lot of people who know what they're talking about when it comes to boxing. Because when they break things down, they're able to identify meticulous detail on what a fighter is doing or not doing, and they're able to articulate it. You also come across some people, a concentric few, who just ramble on, but you know what? Contrasts make the world beautiful, make our boxing community beautiful, and I love to hear from them as well. But there's one individual in particular who I've become friends with. I just call him Mills. And we always kind of bounce things off of each other and we talk boxing, but he kind of piggybacked on a video I did where I was talking about Boots Ennis and Terence Crawford. And what I was saying in that video, I was saying to beat Terence Crawford, you had to take away his right hand. And I said Boots Ennis can do it from southpaw. And in that video, I was just talking about how Terence Crawford, what causes problems for a lot of his opponents is he's right-handed, fighting southpaw. That jab is powerful, and his hook is powerful, and he counters guys with his hook. His backhand left is strong, but not like his right hand. Also, when he gets inside, he digs to the body. He throws that uppercut with the left, but that right uppercut to the body. And you can see he starts everything with that right hand. He finishes everything with that right hand. So that's a telltale sign that he's right-hand dominant. It is no secret in the boxing community. But no one has been able to nullify the Crawford right hand. And I was just saying that Boots Ennis, when you look at his height, he's taller than Crawford reach-wise, about the same, a little bit more reach. Actually has a little more reach than Crawford. His ability to fight out of the southpaw stance as well, being a right-handed fighter, meaning it makes his lead hand equally as strong, if not equally as strong. Maybe Crawford has a little more pop, but we don't know. But what I'm saying is on paper and what I'm seeing, it seems to be an evenly matched fight when you look at their dimensions and what they're able to bring into the ring. Crawford has an edge on experience. But this is where Mills chimed in, and what I did here, and I just brought up his comment so we can read that together and understand what he's saying, because I just think what he said here, like in all of his posts, he's like me. We like to add to the conversation, not just ramble on and complain. But he says he agrees with me that Boots has all the offensive tools to get the job done, which is basically saying, hey, to take away Crawford's right hand and maybe beat Crawford at his own fight. He says there are a few things that he would need to do besides what I mentioned in the video, which some of those things I've shared with you already. And this is something I've talked about in multiple videos about Boots Ennis, the flashiness. He says, look, he can't do any of that flashy crap. The leaping hooks, coming in with sloppy footwork, etc., he'll get knocked out. And he's 100% correct. Boots Ennis has a bad habit of not bringing the necessary discipline into the ring to get the job done in a responsible manner. He likes to look flashy. He's worried about what's going on outside the ring. I've even commented on him shouting things into the audience. And he's more about, like I describe it in basketball, guys who like to look good missing. And I think my boy Mills said guys have like a $1 million game with a 10-cent finish or something like that. So bottom line is, he can't do that stuff. You think about someone coming in with wide looping shots, jumping in at Terence Crawford. Crawford is going to tranquilize him. And Boots has been able to get away with this. And this is something that we need to point out to a lot of the boxing fans. We're not saying Boots. If you look at the first thing that I said Boots is the guy who could probably get the job done. Mills agrees. However, we're like, hey, there's some things that he's going to have to tighten up. No one is saying that Boots is better than Crawford. No one's saying that Boots is incapable. We're just saying that's an interesting fight. But these are the things that's going to create a lot of problems for Boots and preclude him from being victorious, because Crawford will exploit it and damage him. anyone out there who's been following boxing, it's not just because of the Earl Spence fight. Crawford will damage fighters who aren't disciplined, who throw wide shots. He will figure you out. He'll counter you. Crawford is comfortable with staying in the pocket and countering you. If you look at how in that fight with Earl Spence this weekend, Crawford's back was against the ropes. Spence came in, threw a wide shot. Crawford countered him in between inside the shots with a right uppercut, and just had Spence all over the place. You know how hard that is to do? To be comfortable in a firefight and to be able to think and process and see what's going on and get your shot off. Plus, you got to have quick hands and powerful hands to do what Crawford did. So with a guy like Boots jumping in with them leaping hooks and, getting wild in the ring and hand down to his knees and all that, look, he's been able to get away with that against less than stellar opposition. But he's at a point with Boots Ennis where he's going to have, in my opinion, some lateral accomplishments, because as far as him moving up the ladder, there's really just Spence and Crawford. He's going to have to fight a Thurman, fight a Stanionis, I don't know about Ortiz at 47, but he's a Butiev. He's going to have some lateral accomplishments to really develop that discipline we're talking about, and then bubble up and maybe see about trying to get a fight with Crawford or Spence, because those guys really are out here. They're in a whole nother stratosphere. They're looking for legacy fights, $40-50 million fight. Boots Ennis doesn't bring that to the table. So, okay, good luck to him on that. Second thing we talked about is his transitional footwork and how that has to be on point. He gets caught cross-stepping. When Crawford turns him, he's getting knocked out. That's something that I've seen Crawford make that mistake too, where he'll be, cross-stepping, or Crawford will be changing stances, and he'll get caught. He got caught by Vanessian. Crawford did, actually going from southpaw to orthodox to southpaw, and Vanessian timed him. And that's something that we had also talked about in previous videos. But for Boots Ennis, at this point in time, Crawford's not making many mistakes, I'll tell you that. And this whole thing about the transitional footwork and that whole cross-stepping thing that Boots Ennis does, he does that because of what's in front of him, and he's comfortable. And they're going to have to, all these things that are being mentioned, they're going to have to tighten that up in the Boots Ennis camp. Because Crawford is going to recognize, the same way I sit here and recognize things, Mills recognize things. And remember, our eyes aren't as polished as Boots' father and these guys, these trainers and stuff like that. Sometimes I feel we do see a little bit more than those guys. We don't see everything. They see some things we don't see, but you better believe Crawford is going to recognize that with the quickness, what he's doing wrong. And he's going to capitalize. Okay. The other thing here says, do not fight Crawford on the inside. Absolutely. That's just that's one of those recipes for disaster, trying to fight Terence Crawford on the inside. He says Boots' power comes from him fully extending his arms into his punches. Short shots aren't in his bag. Crawford can generate a lot of power from his short shots because of his snap. And the Crawford snap is something that's been talked about for quite some time. Just how hard he hits. The snap on those shots. You've even heard not only fighters, but you've heard Virgil Hunter, the trainer, the guy who trained, I call him the Whisperer, who trained Andre Ward and was training Amir Khan. He said, Crawford just happened to be out there in the area, came into the gym. He worked with him just for a little bit because he was in the gym. He said he couldn't believe. He said he couldn't believe how much power and snap was on Crawford's punches. He said it just blew his mind the kind of power Crawford was able to generate. And he doesn't lie. You know what I'm saying? He calls it like he sees it. He may whisper when he says it, but I believe what he says. And you see it in every fight with Terence Crawford. Whenever he's in a fight, at some point, once he lands, the fight changes. I always make the joke about Terence Crawford goes into the phone booth, turns into Southpaw Man. And it's true. Once he turns into Southpaw Man and he touches an opponent, that fight changes. Okay? And so obviously there's some extreme snapping power on those shots. And it showed up in every single one of his fights. And definitely in all of his fights since he started fighting at 147. And the other thing mentioned was just the importance of patience. Trying to outwit Crawford. Remember, I was saying that you gotta basically, outthink him and take that right hand away, and you gotta put Crawford in the position that Crawford put Spence in. Okay, let's see how Spence likes getting bullied. Let's see how he likes getting hit in the face. Let's see how he likes body shots. Because Spence was used to having his way with all of his opponents. Crawford hasn't necessarily had his way with all of his opponents. He's been hit. He's been buzzed a couple of times, but he has never been outwitted. First 3-4 rounds of a fight, you can see him and a guy battling, wit for wit, trainers and stuff, trying to guide the guys in there and saying, hey, do this, do that, don't do this. But at some point, Crawford is able to outwit them, figure it out, and then Crawford just, is off to the races. Jesus Ramos talked about how when he was sparring Crawford, the mental aspects wear you down just as much as the physical part. It puts a lot of pressure on you to not make a mistake, and it takes guys out their game. Absolutely. When you start making mistakes and Crawford starts touching you and he keeps pressing you, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to unravel because you're worried about getting hit. Then all of a sudden, when the mind goes, the body goes, fatigue sets in. Someone who's in extreme condition will find themselves becoming fatigued because it's just amazing how the mind works because you're worried about what is coming at you. But that being said, Boots Ennis has a great team. Smart team, smart father. Boots is a smart fighter. That fight, Boots, his last fight, who the hell did he fight? Oh, he fought Roman Villa. That performance Boots put on was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing, right? But Villa's not Crawford. But you can't take nothing away from Boots Ennis with that performance. That performance let us know that there's a whole lot to Boots Ennis, and if he can get these things together like we talked about, cut out the flashiness, work on that footwork, know when to fight on the inside, when not to fight on the inside, make sure he's fully extending his shots and getting behind his jab and his making sure he has a snap on the end of his punches. And for the most part, in order for him to do that, he's got to work on his patience. And I tell you what, man, if he can do those things, man, like Mills says, he has a good chance of taking care of business. But if he comes in there like he's been doing, pulling up in the Rolls Royce and the Bentley Jeep or whatever the hell it is with $500,000 worth of dumb jewelry, Beijing in his hair, a bunch of expensive clothes like he's lights, camera, action going to Hollywood. Nah, he needs to come in there like Mike Tyson, the black boots, no socks, black shorts, towel around his neck, ready for war. Because I'm telling you, ain't nothing sweet about getting in a fight with Terence Crawford. You look at him when he goes to do interviews. Terence Crawford out there in jeans and t-shirt and sneakers. He ain't suited and booted. That ain't his style. He always look like he's ready to let hands go. And you just have to have that kind of mentality if you're going to go in there and call yourself banging with Terence Crawford. Because if you don't have it, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to work out good for you. That being said, my boy Mills, one of the many who knows a whole lot about boxing, but one of the few who can actually break it down, articulate it, and get you to see what it is he's trying to convey. And that is a quality not many people have. You know how when it comes to communication, written and verbally, so many people struggle in both of those areas. Some people have a strength in one and not the other. But when you have a strength in both areas, I'm gonna consider you a special person. Trust me, because I know what it is to have to deal with people who can't communicate verbally or written. And my boy Mills has mastered both of those. That being said, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans. Thanks for your comment, Mills. And as always, in the breeze.